Picture this. Cold mud grips your boots, smoke drifts over the marsh, iron knocks against wood, and beyond the gray morning, a kingdom is being hunted in silence. You are standing beside a tired Saxon shieldman in 878 AD, when King Alfred of Wessex has almost nothing left but wet ground, hungry men, hidden messengers, and one final chance to stop the Great Heathen Army. This is Gilded Shadow Record, and you may know Alfred won, but you may not know what it felt like before Edington, when England's future was balanced on a line of shields. This story opens 30 hidden doors, and behind them waits one question: how did a fugitive king break the army that nearly swallowed his world? Before Edington, there is no single England waiting to be saved. There are kingdoms, loyalties, rivalries, and old borders that can be broken one by one. In 865, the Great Heathen Army lands in Anglo-Saxon England, and it does not behave like an ordinary raiding force. It stays, it campaigns, it takes land. Northumbria falls, East Anglia is crushed, Mercia is forced into submission. By the time Wessex stands alone, the Saxon shieldman beside you understands something terrifying without needing a scholar to explain it. If Wessex breaks, the last major barrier breaks with it. The danger does not begin with one clash of weapons. It begins with exhaustion. Years of Viking pressure have drained men, farms, roads, and confidence. Alfred becomes king in 871, after Wessex has already been forced into desperate fighting. Battles, negotiations, payments, marches, and sudden raids have become part of life. The shieldman does not think of history. The shieldman thinks of fields left untended, families hidden, and the sound of strangers moving through winter darkness. A kingdom can survive one defeat. The question is whether a kingdom can survive fear becoming routine. Then comes the strike that changes everything. In January 878, around 12th night, Guthrum and his forces attack Alfred at Chippenham. It is winter, the season when men expect hunger and cold, not the sudden collapse of royal security. The irony is brutal. Alfred is not defeated in some glorious open field where songs can soften the blow. Alfred is driven from a royal estate into flight. The king who should embody order becomes a fugitive moving through a country that may already believe the war is lost. You move with the survivors into the wetlands of Somerset, toward Athelney. The place is not majestic. It is reeds, water, mist, mud, and hidden paths. Yet that ugliness becomes protection. What would shame a proud king becomes the only reason that king remains alive. Athelney is not a throne. It is a breathing space. The shieldman watches Alfred reduced to secrecy and survival, and that reduction becomes strangely powerful. The Vikings hold towns and roads, but the marshes hold something harder to capture: a king who has not agreed to disappear. Rumors move faster than men. Some say Alfred has fled too far. Some say Wessex is finished. Some say Guthrum now owns the future. In villages and farms, people listen for hoofbeats and decide whether loyalty is still safe. The shieldman hears whispers before he hears commands. Fear does not always shout. Sometimes fear is a closed door, a hidden blade, a family deciding not to light a fire at night. The first battlefield is not Edington. It is the mind of every person wondering whether hope has become dangerous. But beneath this darkness, something begins to harden. Alfred does not vanish. The Anglo-Saxon chronicle places him at Athelney after the winter disaster, and from there, the story begins to turn. He gathers men. He sends messages. He waits for time to become usable again. Every day, Alfred remains uncaptured changes the meaning of the crisis. A defeated king hiding in marshland is one thing. A living king sending messages is another. Survival becomes resistance before anyone dares call it victory. Imagine being the messenger. You move through wet paths and hostile country with words that could get you killed. You are not carrying poetry. You are carrying the possibility that Wessex still exists. The message is simple in shape and enormous in weight. Come to Alfred. Come armed. Come before it is too late. The shieldman who hears this summons knows what it means. If he answers and Alfred fails, his family may pay. If he refuses and Alfred succeeds, his name belongs to cowardice. Loyalty becomes a gamble with no safe side. Around the weeks after Easter in 878, Alfred comes out of the marshes and gathers forces at a place the chronicle calls Egbert's Stone. The exact location is debated, but the emotional meaning is clear. Men from Somerset, Wiltshire, and Hampshire come to him. The shieldman sees scattered fear become a body. They are not endless. They are not invincible. Some are tired. Some are angry. Some are afraid to believe. Yet they come, and that act is the first visible crack in Guthrum's certainty. The deeper you look, the less simple the battle becomes. Alfred is not merely marching to fight Vikings. Alfred is marching to restore the possibility of command itself. If men no longer believe in a king, the king cannot save them. If men gather despite danger, the kingdom becomes real again. On the map, the movement toward Edington looks like a military maneuver. On the ground, it is resurrection in slow motion. The shieldman beside you begins to understand that Alfred has already won one battle. He has made men answer. Guthrum's army is dangerous because it has already learned how Anglo-Saxon kingdoms can be broken. It knows speed. It knows winter surprise. It knows pressure. It knows how to exploit divisions and how to turn a frightened kingdom into a negotiated victim. The shieldman does not see monsters from legend. He sees experienced fighters who have survived campaigns, taken strongholds, and watched kings bend. This makes the coming battle worse. The enemy is not careless. The enemy has reason to believe that history is moving in its favor. The march toward Edington is not glorious. It is boots and damp earth, breath and cold air, shields knocking against knees, men speaking less as danger draws closer. Alfred's force moves from gathering to confrontation, and every step asks the same question. Will the men hold when they see Guthrum's line? The shieldman thinks of home, but home is now behind him as much as ahead of him. If he runs, he may reach a village. If the army runs, the village may not matter anymore. The battle near Edington, traditionally placed in May 878, comes to us through sources that tell us the outcome more clearly than every tactical detail. That silence matters. Ancient and early medieval records often preserve kings more than soldiers. They give dates, names, victories, and settlements, but not the trembling hand on a shield rim. So you stand inside the unknown places honestly. We know Alfred fought. We know Guthrum was defeated. We know the siege and settlement followed. But the face of the shieldman must carry what the record cannot fully say. The Saxons formed their shield wall. This is not decoration. This is survival made physical. A shield wall depends on the person beside you. If one space opens, danger enters. If one man breaks, another must absorb the gap. The shieldman feels wood against wood, shoulder against shoulder, breath mixing with breath. The world narrows. There is no room for grand speeches. There is only the line, the weight of the shield, the ground underfoot, and the enemy coming closer. Guthrum's men advance with the confidence of an army that has broken kingdoms before. The first impact is not elegant. It is wood cracker, iron scraper, men grunting as pressure travels through the wall. The shieldman cannot see Alfred clearly. That is important. Most men in battle do not see kings making history. They see the person trying to kill them. The famous version remembers Alfred. The human version remembers the shock in the arms when the first blow lands, and the line does not yet know if it will hold. Here, Gilded Shadow Record asks you to listen beneath the legend. No clean heroic music plays across the field. There is shouting, slipping, coughing, commands swallowed by noise. If this story is pulling you deeper into the shield wall, leave a like as a quiet mark beside the men who stood there, because what comes next is not a miracle falling from the sky. It is something harder. It is pressure endured long enough to become power. The turning point is not preserved as one shining blow or one perfect charge. It is steadier and more frightening. Alfred's men hold. They absorb the attack. They push back. They refuse to dissolve. That refusal matters because Guthrum's strength depends on momentum and fear. If Alfred's line breaks, the winter victory at Chippenham becomes destiny. But at Edington, the Saxon line denies him the easy ending. The shieldman feels the pressure change. The enemy is still dangerous, but certainty begins to leak out of the Viking advance. The battlefield becomes a test of endurance. Men who came from marshes, farms, and hidden roads now stand against the army that nearly ended their kingdom. Alfred's strategy is not only in where he fights, but in what he has made possible before the fight. He has gathered enough loyalty to create resistance. He has chosen the moment after surprise has faded and before fear becomes permanent. The shieldman does not think this clearly. He simply feels the line begin to lean forward instead of backward. What happens next changes everything. Guthrum's force retreats from the field. The chronicle says Alfred pursued the Vikings to their stronghold and besieged them. This is the difference between a brave battle and a decisive campaign. Alfred cannot simply win a clash and let the Great Heathen Army slip away unbroken. Too many kingdoms have learned what happens when Viking forces regroup. The shieldman follows, exhausted, because the victory is not complete while the enemy can still choose the next day. The siege after Edington lasts about 2 weeks according to the chronicle's account. The violence becomes quieter, but not softer. Inside a stronghold, hunger becomes a weapon. Waiting becomes pressure. Men who survived the shield wall now face containment, uncertainty, and the knowledge that escape has narrowed. The army that once hunted Alfred is now trapped by Alfred. The reversal is almost poetic, but for the people inside it, poetry is irrelevant. Food runs down, confidence thins. The Great Heathen Army begins to feel the walls of its own failure. And this is where the familiar version starts to break. Alfred does not destroy Guthrum by annihilating every Viking warrior. He destroys the immediate campaign against Wessex by forcing surrender, hostages, withdrawal, and transformation. Guthrum agrees to terms. Soon after, Alfred sponsors Guthrum's baptism at Aller, where Guthrum takes the Christian name Athelstan. The scene is astonishing. Yesterday's enemy is not merely beaten. The enemy is drawn into a new political and religious order. Alfred's victory moves from battlefield to ritual. To the shieldman, baptism after blood may feel difficult to understand. Why does the king stand as sponsor for the man who nearly destroyed him? But Alfred's world is not built only from revenge. It is built from survival. A dead enemy can become a martyr to memory. A converted, bound, and politically redirected enemy can become something else. A ruler whose power is contained by oath, relationship, territory, and public meaning. Alfred sees that the sword opened the door, but settlement must decide what comes through it. The meeting associated with Wedmore and the later treaty of Alfred and Guthrum help shape a divided but more stable landscape. Guthrum eventually rules in East Anglia. Alfred secures Wessex and strengthens his realm. The Viking presence does not disappear from England. The Danelaw will become part of the island's political reality. But after Edington, the direction of danger changes. Wessex is no longer simply a hunted kingdom reacting to raids and sudden winter attacks. It begins to build a future from the space victory has bought. The deeper you look, the more Edington becomes a battle about time. Alfred wins enough time to reform. In the years after 878, he strengthens fortified places known as burhs, improves military organization, supports learning, develops law, and helps create structures later rulers expand. The shieldman beside you cannot see that future. He cannot see a later England, but he has helped make the conditions for that future. Sometimes a battle changes history not by ending all enemies, but by preventing one world from being erased before another can form. The human cost still remains. Men die at Edington whose names no surviving chronicle preserves. Men who answered messages, carried spears, stood in mud, guarded paths, and held shields while kings became legends. History remembers Alfred as great, but greatness is never carried by one body alone. It is lifted by the unnamed. The shieldman may never hear his own story told, yet without people like him, Alfred's strategy remains only thought. A king can summon, ordinary men must arrive. Near the end, Gilded Shadow Record returns to Athelney, because that is where the meaning of Edington begins. Alfred's greatness is not uninterrupted victory, it is survival after humiliation. It is the discipline to wait in marshland without surrendering the future. It is the ability to turn hiding into preparation, preparation into gathering, gathering into battle, and battle into settlement. Many rulers win when they already look strong. Alfred becomes great because he wins after the world has almost decided he is finished. So when you hear that Alfred destroyed the Great Heathen Army, understand the deeper truth. He did not erase every Viking sword from England. He broke Guthrum's offensive power against Wessex in 878, forced terms, changed the political balance, and shattered the idea that the last Saxon kingdom could simply be swallowed like the others. The destruction was not only physical, it was psychological and strategic. Guthrum's dream of finishing Wessex was broken. The battle matters beyond the battlefield, because without Edington, Wessex may have joined Northumbria, East Anglia, and much of Mercia in defeat or submission. If Wessex collapsed in 878, the later story of England could have taken a profoundly different shape. Edington becomes one of those moments where a muddy field carries more than soldiers. It carries language, law, kingship, memory, and the possibility of a future people not yet fully formed. And now, as the smoke thins over the shield wall and the marsh paths fade behind Alfred's marching men, you are left with a truth stronger than legend. In 878, a hunted king did not save his world because victory was certain. He saved it because, when everything looked lost, enough ordinary men chose to stand with him one more time. The battle still echoes today because sometimes history survives by a single line of shields refusing to break.